John Hutchison, the enigmatic Canadian inventor and experimentalist, is not your typical scientist. His unconventional approach to science and his relentless pursuit of the unknown have led him down a path filled with mysteries and anomalies that challenge our understanding of the physical world. We delve into the background, history, and motivations of John Hutchison, shedding light on the man behind the groundbreaking experiments. Born in 1945 in Vancouver, Canada, John Hutchison's early years were marked by a curiosity about the world around him. He displayed a natural aptitude for electronics and mechanics from a young age, tinkering with gadgets and machinery that piqued his interest. This innate curiosity would eventually propel him into a world of scientific exploration that few could have predicted. One of his notable passions was his love for photography. Hutchison was an avid photographer and spent considerable time documenting his experiments and the phenomena he encountered. His visual documentation provided valuable insights into the effects he was observing, allowing him to share his discoveries with the world. Hutchison's foray into the world of electromagnetic anomalies began in earnest during the 1980s. His experiments focused on creating specific electromagnetic fields using a variety of equipment and setups. These experiments would eventually lead to the development of the Hutchison effect, a term coined to describe the extraordinary and unexplained phenomena witnessed during his trials. The Hutchison effect encompassed a wide range of anomalous occurrences, including levitation of objects, changes in material structures, and the deformation of metals, all without any apparent external force or traditional explanation. These baffling results catapulted Hutchison into the spotlight of unconventional science. Behind John Hutchison's tireless pursuit of the unknown lay a profound motivation to challenge the boundaries of established science. He aimed to explore the hidden potentials of electromagnetism and discover unconventional energy sources that could revolutionize the way we understand and harness energy. Hutchison's experiments were not driven solely by the quest for scientific recognition, but also by a desire to contribute to the betterment of humanity. He believed that his discoveries could hold the key to breakthroughs in propulsion systems, energy generation, and even space exploration. His dedication to documenting his work, coupled with his openness to sharing his findings, has allowed others to build upon his research and contribute to the ongoing exploration of electromagnetism's hidden potentials.
The lone inventor, John Hutchison in Canada, Vancouver, Canada. Hutchison takes two Tesla coils and essentially puts in the center of them a target, which in every target has certain nonlinearities, and then blasts away with these two coils at them. Basically what he establishes is an electromagnetic fighting itself, electromagnetic forces fighting themselves. And gravitational force is made when, a gravitational potential is made when electromagnetic forces fight themselves to a draw, when, in other words, the gradients become zero. The gradient vectors, or the resultants, become zero, but the two forces are still in there slugging it out. All the energy is still going, the work is still going, but it's trapped locally. That's internal energy. That's what gravity is. And the Whittaker paper tells very well how to do that. So when John got things just right, he didn't have control of it, absolute control, but he bored in there with persistence, and when he got things just right to get the forces to fight to a draw, and there was the right nonlinearity in the target, he would have levitation of things even 64 pounds. He would also, another thing you do with such a thing is you cause the magnetostatic potential to change a vacuum. In other words, that's pole, an unfortunate name in magnetism. But in other words, it causes deposits of monopoles inside materials such as metals. And you'll literally have the monopoles repel each other, and you'll have the explosive separation of metals into all kinds of grains and structures according to the waves in the Tesla coils that you're bombarding it with. And so he produced magnificent breaks, Hutchison did, in metals and splits as if it were Venetian blinds. And another thing it does, since this stuff comes from the nucleus out, it doesn't go through the electron shells. Its medium is the nuclei. What you have then is you have changes in the atomic nuclei, which result in lattice changes. You have the production of alloys, which cannot be made in this world with normal processes. And some of those alloys appeared in John Hutchison's work as a result of that kind of bombardment. Another thing you have is once charged with scalar radiation, the nuclei then continue to discharge over a long period of time. And so the material continues to change, alloy form and so forth, over a period of even a year. And you had those changes occur in his work also. He was reproducing and has been reproducing some of the work of Nikola Tesla and even some of it going further. But that's what he's doing. What he's doing is real. And unfortunately, most people regard John Hutchison as being a little bit off and not really understanding electromagnetics and not really understanding a Tesla coil. Nothing would be further than the truth. He's doing the real electromagnetics. He's doing the kind of electromagnetics they don't know anything about. He's doing electrogravitation and real Tesla work.
So, I was actually born with agoraphobia, as far as I remember. Still have it. My first interest was threaded pipes. I was very excited when my dad took me to a plumbing store. 5 years old. That was a big interest for me at the time. Lived on Marguerite Street in Vancouver, behind Austin Taylor's mansion, which kind of led my sister and I to exploring the property and looking for snakes and that kind of thing. So they tried to get me into kindergarten. I escaped every time they tried to put me in kindergarten or school. Just walk away. Had no interest in it, and it was very kind of scary for me being an agoraphobic. Then I remember running towards the ocean and my mother coming after me and grabbing me, picking me up. My dad moved to North Vancouver, Edgemont Village. There I got, when I got interested in chemistry, I had a huge actually a very large laboratory. Chemicals, I do everything with chemicals. That interest was for a couple of years. I remember the Dr. Warner, coming in to see me in the house. That's when doctors made house calls. And my dad, all through these things, was very supportive. And he took me to Harkley and Hayward, bought me a Ross rifle, 303, and a double-barrel shotgun, which then led me on to collecting more, and he'd give me money to buy them. So I had a fair collection of these things. And I bought them from Alan Lever Antiques in Vancouver on Dunsmuir Street. And flare guns, everything was cheap in those days, so that was my high interest. I'd restore them and rebuild them. My dad had a very massive, complete library, so I could look at anything up with the encyclopedia and books on everything, because he's branch manager for Collier's Encyclopedia of Western Canada. And I think the USA too. He was offered to go to start in New York and that. He had a band. Ken Hutchison and his band across Canada a long time ago. But he was a businessman, and as time marched on, my first interview with news media was when I put up hydrogen balloons in the air. And people thought it was a UFO invasion in Vancouver, and next thing I knew, the press showed up. Newspapers and CBC, they took me out for lunch, and I thought I was a big shot, big hero. Blah, 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 blah. My sister and I went to Channel 8 Dance Party. As I'm progressing through into my teens now, Channel 8 Dance Party. And we go back and watch ourselves on television on Saturday, or I think it was Saturday. So always had a high interest in a lot of things. And studying all the time. Instead of like Google, the encyclopedia, I'd pick a letter and go through it. Like reading a book. I always worshipped the sun, so I'd be on the lawn cart reading encyclopedias in the sun. My first fell in love with Shirley Temple Black. Wrote her a letter and she wrote back. So I was getting into sexuality at a very young age. Okay, so other interests progressed as time progressed on. I was going to all the scrapyards and gun stores, high-profile types in North Vancouver. Next door was Dr. Webb, a medical doctor, and they get together with my parents and drink booze and get drunk. And kind of Mr. Watt, he was an Army officer, Navy, and wanted me to join the Navy and all this stuff, and he proof tested my rifles in the backyard. In those days, people weren't paranoid like they are now. My parents thought it was a good idea for me to go to Riverview Hospital or Essendale. That's where I learned a lot about life there. I was put in there on an adult basis in the Crease Clinic, A4 West, then graduated to West Lawn Building, A2 and A1. I had a gun collection there, believe it or not, plus a radio collection or electronic collection. Stacked next to my bed, literally, and the guns were underneath the bed, and the doctors didn't seem to be too bothered. Dr. Slichter, one of my doctors, came down to A1 ward and because a patient said he saw me with guns or something. He said, yeah, they're under my bed, and I pulled them out, and he was holding them and turning. I always remember him turning the cylinder on a revolver I had. He said, I think we should put them in the dispensary so that patients don't get upset when they see them. I said, oh, that's fine with me. And I don't want them stolen. So time progressed there. I had girlfriends there. I had all kinds of adventures in Riverview. I learned a lot about humans, that's for sure. They tried to get me because I have agoraphobia. Maybe I tried shock treatment to get rid of it. No, it didn't work. Then they went on with other things and medications and stuff. Then they decided and found a practitioner in England who came over and taught me to simply do relaxation exercises and picture in my mind what bothers me. And tensing up like this, it kind of feels uncomfortable. Then relax and you feel good. Do that same with the mental imagery of open spaces. So I haven't got a fear of people. No, it's just open spaces. Direct opposite of claustrophobia. Okay, that was interesting. And then the doctor said, if you ever get bored, let us know, and then we can write your discharge papers. So one day I was bored and wrote up the discharge paper. Gave me $20. My dad picked up the most of the guns and radio gear and put it in at home because I was striking out on my own. So I wound up on Skid Row, which I wanted to do because a friend invited me there. A patient of Riverview, by the way. Roy Sharper was his name, so I spent a couple of weeks downtown Vancouver, 5 West Hastings Street. I enjoyed it. I got around, I met people. I saw how the poor folks, lived. In the meantime, I was looking for a room in North Vancouver, like for $35 per month in Lynn Valley. And I phoned up the person. Said, yeah, it's available. I just come on over and we'll see what happens. So I took a blacktop cab along with my possessions and a pistol I had because I was in a downtown area. And I thought it'd be a good idea if I was going to take a bath. I carried the pistol there, and I made the bullets into this blank. It's a 45 caliber. I took the bullet out and put a whiting in it. I'm not into killing anything. So anyway, that was interesting. Mrs. Murphy and the family accepted me right away, and I moved in. Brought radio gear over to the room, and that whole room, over time, filled up with, I don't know how many guns. Many, and radio gear and electronic stuff. I took a while to fill up. I mean, Browning automatic rifles, 50 caliber Browning machine guns were only like $25, $35, and prices went up to $100 and $200 and on over time. So I had a massive machine gun collection. Most of them were deactivated. I don't care if they work or not. But in those days, you could just simply register and it wasn't a problem. Then in 78, Trudeau passed gun laws and the RCMP raided me, and that's when all the press stuff came out. And I hit the press, and they filmed and wrote stories, kept tabs on me all the time. And also, I won my cases with R. Flynn Marr, who's going to visit me, by the way. We're going to talk about all the adventures we had together with this case. Judge Cronin was the judge in my case, and he got really mad and angry at the RCMP and all the people that tried to frame me up. So, court orders firearms returned to gun collector, me, John Hutchison. So that went on for a while. And then I got into, again, more into vintage stuff, and I started to wander in the area of Nikola Tesla. And I got all the books I could on him, and I started actually building his stuff, and built it just like the standards of the time. I did get a lot of information, this is interesting, from Tesla's friend, Thomas Lee Richardson, who had a house full of Tesla artifacts and documents and papers. A witness to that would be Stan Reddick, Mr. Turner, Steve Turner. So Thomas Lee gave me lots of information. There were other Tesla people that seemed to understand, and gave me books. I studied those books, Colorado String Notes. But Thomas published a book on Tesla. It's on Amazon, I think, in the Vancouver Public Library. Plus he struck medallions. I got those and actually took photos of that stuff. So Thomas Lee Richardson, The other person that came into my life was Mel Ernest Winfield, who actually, if it wasn't for Mel, I probably wouldn't even progressed along. But Mel, I was with Billy Ross, downtown Vancouver on Davie Street. Went to the Aquarian University Institute, where Mel Winfield ran it, and sat and listened to Mel. And he talked and asked me, what do I do? I said, I'm just working on building Tesla machinery. And I mentioned some of the weird stuff like light bulbs lighting up by themselves, and metal flying around, and that kind of thing. And that caught his attention, these odd effects. And he said, well, I want to give you something, a Van de Graaff generator, which is damaged, so I restored it. That was about 1980 now, or in the 80s. But anyway, I found it useful instead of my other thing, static generator. Mel came over, wanted to see it, everything, and progressed to take pictures. I didn't have a movie camera, just he took photographs of things flying through the air and caught some of them, luckily. So my parents went on vacation, and I was with Bill Ross. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call at my parents' home, and Mel wanted to come over. I said, oh, okay. And then he brought Alex Pizarro, and Alex Pizarro talked and interviewed me for at least a couple hours, and they both went away. And I said, well, I'm here, working here, but you're welcome to come over to Lynn Valley. And they did. And then the word spread out what I was doing. I thought, oh, these people are crazy. And the metal samples, literally, I took and threw in the trash. So Alex Pizarro would go out in the garbage and pull out all these metal samples. Because it's no use to me, they're all damaged. So along comes George Hathaway from Toronto, Canada. And he's seeing what I was doing, and he brought Felipe Galuppi and secretary, and they had a film session. So George filmed some stuff that exploded, metal pieces and stuff floating in the air. And then that led into George working with other people on this, as well as Mel Winfield started to say this is his technology. Oh, this stuff, and that upset Hathaway and Alex Pizarro to the point where they told him never bother to come around again. So there was people showing up, University of British Columbia, from SAIC, from San Diego Group. And this all led into me actually moving from Lynn Valley to a storage area, and it took them, I think, a week to move me. That's how much stuff I had. And set up for the U.S. government people. And Los Alamos and Navy labs and all that stuff. We did that, and that lasted several months. My mother passed away during that time from alcoholism. I set up 3744 East Hastings Street, and the activity there was the amount of people that came and come and go with film stuff, pay me $100 for a demonstration. They loved it. Take metal samples. Even Thomas Lee Richardson showed up there and sat around looking at things. And he said it kind of reminds me of his Nibs. 4 or 5 TV shows took place there, news media stuff, and groups of scientists over quite a long time. That's where McDonnell Douglas filmed. Jack Houck and McDonnell Douglas will report the videos online. It's called The Vancouver Experiment. Who else showed up? Contractors for the U.S. Army. Because a friend of mine, Brian Borodale, drove limo from the Vancouver airport to the downtown Vancouver, and always talk about me and bring some of the contractors over, and they start filming. That's where a lot of really heavy dynamic. There was many tons of electrical machinery in there. Okay, levitation stuff, Tesla stuff, radio stuff. Then I go into machine tools, and then go into firearms. Then return to the radio stuff or electronic stuff or high voltage stuff. Then things got dicey and I had to move. Something was going to happen, or the next door neighbor wanted me out of there and all that. His stuff was getting smashed up for these crazy experiments. So I was at Satellite Electronics at Main Street, and I met George Case and Alexander Sarashevsky. And we decided to have a partnership, and I moved into their building on Kingsway, 13th and Kingsway. We set everything up, all the heavy stuff. It was all taken from 3744. Had nails floating through the wall, objects moving around, objects falling apart. objects floating around kind of thing, and the whole building vanished, according to people. Documented by insurance agency. Now, I'm still in contact with Alexander Sharashevsky, but George, that's the case is long, he passed away. He formed Pinnacle Oil International. A lot of heavy voltage stuff. Here's actually a video of me talking in there and doing experiments. You can see it on Nancy Lassie or on Hutchison's video. I videotaped it. It's black and white film, very bad, but I did it. Prior to this, I got an invitation from Dr. Peter Kokoshnik and Dr. Margarita Kokoshnik, who were my girlfriend at the time in Gaza. His her great-granddad made the Oerlikon cannons in Rhode Island. So on the eve, kind of almost on the eve, then I'm going to Germany, but there's a big dispute between all three of us, and Ian was there when George and Alex showed up at the building and screaming and yelling and cursing us, threatening us. That's where the BC Supreme Court came into play. The judge basically ordered that all of us should work together and allow me into the building. But anyways, off to Germany, though. I spent 2 years there, over 2 years, with Dr. Peter Kokoshnik in Gaza and meeting scientists all the time. In the meantime, the German folks were analyzing the samples at Max Planck Institute. Berlin laboratories, other places all over Germany, written up in an Esquire magazine, 4-page article. And I did acquire a gun collection over there. So when I left to go back to Canada, I had to go through the German police who okayed everything. Then the ATF in Atlanta, Georgia okayed everything, and then the RCMP okayed everything. The lab was to be shipped to Germany, but the shipping container was sabotaged. All cargo express in Canada. A lot of weird stuff going on. So the container was paid for by the Germans, and shipping was all done, but the container somehow was sabotaged and it fell apart or something. That's what I heard. And there was lawyers involved that be faxing over to Germany. Stuff going on with Alec and George. George is trying to do the levitation himself, but got almost killed because that 1,500-pound transformer fell on him and put him in the hospital for 3 months. But I retained my friendship with Alexander Sharashevsky to this day. We write to each other quite often. He kind of comes visit here sometime. We're going to have it. When I got back to Canada, found out that the laboratory was put in storage. Yeah, wow. It was all delivered to my sister's garage, along with crates of guns. What was taken was transformers and capacitors that had PCBs in them. So really, there was no raid, as people think there was. Raided at gunpoint? Come on! I get along with everybody just fine. Where do these people get these crazy ideas from? Raided at gunpoint? These same little ideas with flying saucer with strings on it. That's a big one, there's idiots out there. It's got a wire to it. 30,000 volts DC to a plastic, foam, metallic. Anyway, I was going to return to Germany. I did something extremely foolish. I scrapped everything and sold everything. Triple B auctions. So stupid of me. Plus, I took apart all this good equipment. What kind of headspace was I in? I was invited to live in Belzig. I was all ready to go. Then Yin showed up, my girlfriend, and other things transpired, and that's when we got the apartment together. Then she went to Germany and doing films, and Austria doing films. Miracle of the Unknown, Above Top Secret. And I went over in 1993 to stay with her for a month or two, then returned back to Canada, and I went to Japan, invited by Japan for a month or 2 months, where I gave lectures and also the metal samples I carried around, plus Mr. Yomabi, my host, built a laboratory to do things I do in Hiroshima City. All this is all documented by Mr. Hino of JOGM TV, Hiroshima Home TV, and other Japanese film people. So our thing was going to different towns and prefectures and doing talks. Well, Yin and I were on the road quite a bit, but mostly flying. Small aircraft flying to this location. We were guests of honor at the Tsukyo Nakakari Temple of 40,000 people. They had an honor guard lining the streets for us. Like, what? A lot of photographs were taken and shared. They also read a book on me. I still don't even know what it says. I still have the book. Then a year after that, I went with Dr. Brian O'Leary. We did a lecture tour together. 94, I started to work with the Artificial Reef Society of British Columbia, Canada. I have a great interest in artillery cannons and Navy stuff, Navy electronics, and warships. So I worked on 4 warships. One of them is used in 2 X-Files stories, Dodcom and Endgame. And in filming, I had to be quiet. So all of that with ships ended in about 2000. As West Roots and his group had to move somewhere else from the new Westminster docks. And West Roots wanted me to come be with them as a consultant on how to take apart artillery and electronics. I declined. And also I declined a lot of people that offered me large amounts of money to do things, but no. There's always strings attached. You got to do this or work here, and it's, what kind of lifestyle? No. I don't like Charles Bombardier. He and Kevin Albar, filmmaker, wanted me to work in, I think, Valcourt, Quebec, in the old mansion of Charles Bombardier's place. But no, we're good friends, okay. No, I have greatest respect for all these people. George Hathaway is priceless, but they're taking me out of my weird realm I live in, which is scrapyards and surplus stores and being on my own. Do whatever the hell I want to. Some of them just want to make power cells. Well, made for the Japanese, for our friend in Germany who's going to visit here someday as well. I spent a lot of time with Thomas in LA, up in Canada. We'd come, give me several $100,000 to make more power cells. I made them for him. My first power cell making was for a Reatrade group in Canada. Carl David Anderson, 20,000, 30,000. I never asked for it. They just offer it. Said, I can't guarantee anything, but so far it all worked out. As you see in the video, as CBC did on the power cells, which is Nancy's YouTube channel again. So I had Grant Romund from Hollywood, friends with Bill Shatner and other actors and that. He did an excellent presentation on the power cells in the video. It's on the internet. The Japanese would come and show up at 11 in the morning and talk to me for a bit, take the products I made from the power cells and go back to Hiroshima. I have U.S. congressmen showing up like Dennis Kucinich and Berkeley Bedell and some other characters. TV shows like The Apprentice. I filled out all the forms. I got all these weird letters from you-know-who about real estate. But I turned that show down, and I'm not into that world, so I declined New York to be on Dan Aykroyd's show, somewhere out there. Not that one, no. Yeah, Dan Aykroyd. But the show was canceled. Dan's show was canceled, and, I sent ahead, this is after 9/11, I sent ahead my metal samples and clothing and everything else, but luckily they returned it. I was lucky I didn't lose it, but anyway. And Dennis Kucinich got a bunch of my metal samples somewhere. Scientists over the years like Ken Shoulders and Thomas Bearden, Dr. Ludwig, and many dozens others, Dr. Rauscher, Dr. Elizabeth Ann Rauscher, stayed with us a month in Oregon. I miss them because one of them passed away, like 3220 Sacramento Street. That's where I met Prince Alfred von Liechtenstein. He was a very interesting person to meet up with, and other people. It's just a NASA person, on and on. No complaints. I found these people very interesting and fascinating to talk to and get along with. We had a lot of fun together over the years, and many people. So these days, there's Bob, who's outcoming scientist, Martin Fleischmann, Memorial Project. He's done a lot of work with metal samples of mine. Oh, Jack Safrati and his friends with Ian Gasta and his group, but they're all very theoretical physicists. But I get a lot of emails, I respond to them. A new doctor owns a company around the world. I'm in email contact with him. A lot of young scientists doing this thing, like yourself, which is quite interesting to me because it's real. What you do is real. A lot of others seem to get sucked into the scammers, like John Searle and That guy with his gravitator thing. I don't say anything. No. Paul Pantone. You know, I'm not gonna. You know, I'm not gonna say anything about it. You're a real one. I know that. I recognize that. I recognize when somebody's real or fake. I've got a number of real cool people, young generation. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even an inventor. I just like working with old stuff. However, a long time ago, meet all these different people who were scientists or inventors. I got along with them fine. I mean, no problem. I did kick one guy out of my place. And then, always remember this one, from the University of British Columbia, a professor showed up because Alec Pizarro asked him to come around and look at something. At that time, I was at 3744 East Hastings, mid-80s or late 80s, or whatever it was. And I had these radio receiver listening to the space shuttle. That's fascinating. And the professor comes in and he says, "No, you don't start doing anything like that. It'll burn your eyes out and get sick." He just walks out the door. Alec Pizarro started laughing his head off. And I tend to get along with men and women. I met psychopathic killers and talked to him. Juan Matilla! Until he started acting funny and they sent him back to Colony Farm. I was apprenticed with David Steele, a TV repairman at the time, and I'd follow him around and learn from him and do simple operations on things. Oh, that brought back some cool memories of old radio stuff. Also, as a DJ at Riverview, 6,000 people there. I love doing that. Being a DJ is fun. Okay, jumping back to 1986, Expo 86, I was presenter of the levitation stuff at BC Clay Stadium. So that was about a week long. I still got some of the info on that. This filmed, the guy's name was Art in the Connections. I fell in love with a lady in Arizona and we got married. Helena Kasiki. But she got so controlling over time. It was pretty severe, so I just left. I just got a taxi to PHX Airport, took off back to Vancouver. The lab was still intact. So, actually, a girlfriend of mine was looking after it for me and paying the rent every month. So, anyway, that ended, and I met Nancy in 2009. I left and stayed a year, and then returned to Canada. And she was to come and stay with me, and she did, and we, a lot of activities happened, like I sold a section of the lab to Germany that wanted to do levitation stuff. They paid me only $50,000 for it. And I shipped off, 9 tons were shipped off out of 24 tons, which is then shipped to Minnesota. As Nancy and I went on an epic journey to work on eliminating the oil in the Gulf of Mexico, which worked. I was there for a number of months, and then Fukushima came along, and we did working on that too right now. But anyway, it was all documented by scientists. I uploaded all the documents to SlideShare, John K. Hutchison. A lot of stuff I uploaded. The before and after tests under controlled conditions. The oil was eliminated. The Navy Department showed up, John Shelburne, to look this over and take samples. And also Bob Neiman. I'm still in contact with Steve Coburn. Jumping way back again to the apartment lab, hosted a lot of television people. Beyond Invention, Griffin Film Production, History Channel, Fox TV, with Jonathan Frakes of Star Trek. I estimate over all time demonstrations to television folks, at least 300 or over that. And I have behind me a row of videos covering 25 feet. I don't know if you see them or not up there. They're on the far wall. A lot of stuff has not ever been uploaded. The documents, 10,000 documents, not uploaded. And what you see on the internet, it's just a tiny portion of what I've done. Filming effects and metal blocks falling apart, scissors exploding. Well, I'm filming other people filming me, and you see the government guys talking to me. I had a camera mounted on the wall that filmed stuff that was going on, and you can hear them talking. Oh, but the levitation happened over there. Put put it over there kind of thing. So, controlled experiment. I sent you a link to the video. It's kind of... So when somebody posts a video, oh, it's all strings. Simply scientists with big egos that are really pissed off that I can do something, I suppose. That's what I think psychologically is going on. A lot of these characters have big egos and really get pissed off when they see me, a little nut like me, doing all this stuff. Verified. So they make up these funny little stories. Can't be true. I guess you call them internet trolls or whatever you call them, like that. Mr. Smith, I presume, character. Trolls are trolls. Had a good partner by emails. And Nick Cook of Change Defense Weekly on the $1 Billion Secret. But I do get a lot of emails from, because the shows keep airing on Discovery Channel, Science Channel, and History, and Fox TV, and all that stuff. But I guess you call it fan mail. Sometimes I'll go after a show airs. I walk outside and just go to the corner store and ask to sign autographs. Oh well. And then my landlord's son told me I had to turn away around 30 people every month. I said, that's good. Thank you. And oh well. Still a website, still running. HutchisonEffect.ca. I've always been a clown who jokes around. Then I have a little doggy. His name is EVO, named after Ken Shoulder's discovery. Ken and I were pretty close, and had a lot of close scientist friends. Sort of passed away. Even Gordon Novell, who formed a group together to build flying saucers. Huge, massive amount of information. Look up Gordon Novell, N-O-V-E-L. He's got quite a history to him, but he passed away in 2010 after he and I were talking and something. Paul Mueller's inventor back in Chicago. He's a good friend too. He's a scientist worth looking into. Oh, there's many others I met also. In Greece, Dr. P.T. Pappas was studying my work and invited me to Greece, but he showed up at my place with his wife, and he was going to write up a science report. I have another good friend in Greece, Mr. Alec, who sold me stuff fraction of price on eBay, and he invited me over there to check out a scrapyard. That's the place I want to go. And Mr. Alec over the last couple of years. Ken Shoulders comes stay a week in New West in a hotel. We go out every day to talk and that. Dr. Ludwig, German scientist, filmed for 14 days. He stayed a month. With Helena in Scottsdale, Japanese media showed up. They bought $40,000 of footage from Peter Von Puttkammer. Peter sells my footage for $150 per second. He sold a bunch to NBC and other companies. A lot of the shows I haven't seen, but I got the documents on the sales of the footage. A Japanese show, 3 producers showed up and bought footage and filmed this. Paul Stabakowski for Discovery Channel International. We're still good friends. I'm still friends with some of the film producers, by the way. Robert Kiviat of Fox TV. I like being positive and friendly with people, and friendly back, and we get on fine. No big deal. So it's enjoyable to be positive towards each other. I'm trying to remember if I ever had any cranky people. You know, that IBM guy got kicked him out. But most of the cranky people are just internet people. I'm not religious, by the way. No, I'm not religious. I understand the principles of how something small can create a massive event. You got some words that were said a long time ago. Sun ejected stuff formed a planet. The Fermi levels dropped as it cooled off. A touch of water or something happened. Lightning, little organisms formed, and with a great amount of time, animals and fish formed, and then over a great amount of time, primitive humans showed up. Basically, we're all stardust, in my opinion. I use radio from extremely low frequency to super HF for when I'm working on things in voltage because it signals, everything's signals off. So it tells me, and I visualize it and see it, and I gotta do this and do that. So plus I have an interest in receivers and transmitters and all the best stuff that's ever made. I have no interest in plastic stuff. Why Navy stuff? Because best made stuff in the world. Not aircraft stuff. No interest in it. Free energy devices, bearing tightened cylinders. Can't find them anymore. I have a friend in Germany who makes cylinders, by the way, with the different formulations. Dr. Marcus Reed, actually in Munich. I also made trinitroglycerine. It's simple. I used my mother's refrigerator for coolness. Thank God it didn't blow up. Holy mackerel, I wouldn't be around her. They tried to get me to go to North Shore College. They drive me up there and I walked back a mile. And had me in a little suit and tie. And I used my tie to drag an old motor I found all the way down Queens Road to my parents' house. The crease, actually Riverview's used a lot in the X-Files as well. Stargate, if you go on Wura, I was a guest. Some of the film people came down, took me on a tour of the place. We had fun. I got a lot of pictures of us there. Then Paul Pinkot's place. And Michael McCardle did a number of stories with me. I love Mike. He's a good guy. And every night he does last words for CTV News. Check it out. Check out Mike's stories. The story he did on me came in at number 2 one year. And Squirrel and Water Keys came in as number 1. Check them out. CTV News. So my leg's getting better. I had an operation. Dr. Pullen, next door neighbor. I got septic arthritis. I was operated on, cleaned. I was in hospital 10 days and still on antibiotics. They were really friendly doctor. I gave him a metal sample, big metal sample as a gift, Christmas gift. This town is amazingly friendly. Great people. Today I made a VHF antenna. I always do a lot of things every day. Metal samples, I have lots and sold them off on eBay as well as trade. My friend in England, who got me all the Orla Cannon parts for scrap price. I paid him money for it, and I traded him metal samples for it. However, I always check things. Sometimes I don't like what happens and effects that happen here. I got a Spencer rifle, Civil War carbine that's got some weird marks on it. I don't remember those marks. I may be wrong, but I think I made a video on one of them. I was taking apart a radio receiver. Oh, the old stuff, actually the surplus I get is however it's used. I always check everything, the capacitors, change the capacitors, as well as any other defects. Otherwise, there's no problems. I always like metal things.